Hello and welcome to Crypto TV. This is Manoj Dharra. Welcome to the third segment and a panel discussion on central bank digital currency. We have a very robust panel for you. Let me introduce you to first guest, Mr. Sharat Chandra, research and strategist at Earth ID. Our second guest is Mr. Vikram Pandya, Director Fintech SP Jain. And our third guest is Mr. Prasanna Lohar, Chief Innovation Officer at DCB Bank. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. So Sharat, the first question to you is, so we are talking about central bank digital currency in the Union Budget 2022, which was presented few days back. Honorable Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, proposed to introduce a central bank digital currency in the coming financial year. So my first question to you is, does India need CBDC for wholesale or retail payments? Is it required? If you can just begin with.
Right. So great question, Manoj. And I think this question also needs a wider debate whether we need a retail CBDC given the success of payment we have in India, the UPI success story, right? So if you look at some aspects where we have digital payments going in millions every month, right? But again, there's significant amount of transaction failure as well. So one argument can be it can support the existing payment trails and payment infrastructure. Now, when it comes to wholesale CBDC, that's where even the RBI Deputy Governor has said that a significant work is being done with respect to wholesale CBDC, where it can be used for interbank settlements, cross-border payments.
Sure.
And even globally as well, if you look at some examples where there's a project called Project Helvetia, the second phase was completed very recently, where they're using CBDCs for settling tokenized securities. So that one particular aspect where even in our case, even SEBI is looking at issuing securities using blockchain, right? So, but again, that's a very I would say that milestone is quite far away, but again, that's one possibility. Second is when it comes to retail CBDC, since we have a significant or high currency to GDP ratio, close to 13%.
Sure.
And in February, if you look at the numbers, the cash in circulation stands at 30.5 lakh crores, which is expected to go up to 40 lakh crores in the next 5 years. So a significant 10% jump. If you want to reduce the cash in circulation in the economy, because managing cash, printing money, right? And there are associated costs with respect to
Sure.
enforcing compliance. So that portion can be taken care of by introducing a digital rupee, right? But again, we need to be cognizant of the fact that it has to be a coexistence of both the fiat money as well as central bank digital currency, stable coins, and all that.
Fantastic view. Vikram sir, my follow-up question to you is, few keywords I've picked up, what Sharat has mentioned. There is a cost that is involved. CBDC, as we are discussing about for wholesale or retail payments. Does India need CBDC? If you can just highlight that as well.
Sure. So in my opinion, I think RBI will definitely start with wholesale first. Retail, they will not start with. We will take our precedents from Singapore, for example. They have started with Project UBIN and they have developed that first. And I'm sure we are also going to go on that route first. But retail will take some time, given that typically you need to study more about, let's say,
Sure.
India being a huge country. You have different dynamics involved in issuing retail CBDC.
Right.
It is not only about issuing something, it is more about educating them, allowing them to use, which is something much more easier for everyone to use, like
Fantastic.
UPI. And that will take some time, in my opinion. And that's the reason initially it will start in CBDC on the wholesale side. And we will see, look, in retail side, you have Bahamas, you have in area as another example, Nigeria. So those CBDCs which are there in the retail segment, if you look at the way they have managed it, right? And always there is a debate, right? For countries which are as small as, let's say, Bahamas, they can do experimentation. You have Estonia, for example, they can do whatever they want in terms of CBDC, wholesale, retail. But for us, when we think about issuing a new CBDC kind of a token and try to make sure that this entire traceability and governance framework is built around it, that will take some time in terms of debate and acceptability. It is my opinion.
So Prasanna, a few keywords. So, India can roll out, can come out with their wholesale CBDC first. There are a lot of examples which Vikram sir has highlighted. What's your opinion on this?
Yeah, I think I'll go with what Vikram said, right? India is a huge country with so many banks, so many customers, so many monetary policies already rolled out. And this is a very robust ecosystem which we have built since last so many years, right? So all of a sudden, if we say that let's change those policies, it will be some pressure on overall regulatory structure what we have seen. So it makes sense, start small and get onto the smaller ecosystem, which can be really done with the wholesale, the way Singapore, Canada have done, and there are many other countries have done, from wherein we can learn the things and come out with those learnings for the retail kind of a CBDC. The best part for India is that we are sitting on those railroads. For example, for creation of a CBDC, what we need is a robust regulatory ecosystem, robust finance at a country level, digital identity, having those infrastructure. I think India is far more ahead on the compared to other countries, and we'll have a better CBDC if you go step by step. I think what Sharas spoken about, how we can bring on those experience from the other countries also can be very much helpful for India like country. Yeah.
So Sharath, Prasanna is saying that India is far better placed and to take advantage for a rollout of CBDC. My second question to you is, we have so many payment instruments, say for example like UPI, IMPS, AEPS, etc. Why India need an additional in form of CBDC?
Right. So since we have UPI payments reaching great heights, millions and billions, right? So, but again, there's significant amount of transaction failure as well. But if imagine a case where a digital rupee is running on UPI rails, so the settlement risk part, right?
Right.
Is taken out of picture, and all settlements will happen in real time. So what happens is, let's say if I'm transacting on UPI and sending money to you for that matter, right? Sure. So what happens is there's a settlement happening in the background, and at times those settlements do not happen in real time. So that's why there's a reconciliation, and so that aspect can be taken out of the equation, and that will make our payment system much more robust. But we have to keep in mind the cost associated with implementing the digital rupee might be higher, and they're associated with respect to cybersecurity and other risk. Perfect. And also there's a need to make general people aware how they can use it, right? Because even digital payments, there are enough frauds going on, and RBI is kind of stepping up the game when it comes to educating people how they can transact safely. Now a digital rupee will be a different ballgame altogether, right? Perfect. So there has to be education coupled with whether this will be the right cost benefit decision to make or not, investing in the right tech infrastructure, right? Because that will be a very capital intensive process as well. So Vikram sir, a few keywords which I've picked up, what Sharath has mentioned is frauds and investment in the infra. What's your opinion on this?
So I'm very sure about RBI's approach. In a way, given the past history, the way they have done it, right? They would like to do something where the overall architecture and infrastructure is owned by government. And at the end of the day, when we look at other countries' approach, they have partnered with someone, and that's other companies developing, designing. Here again, the approach might be similar, that they will partner, but it will be bought out either, or it will be proprietary development that they will do. Second thing on the fraud side is that, look, fraud will happen differently in different ecosystems. You cannot have UPI fraud happening similarly in crypto, or you cannot have crypto happening in UPI. But the way some of the modus operandi are there, you may want to make sure that those are covered, and you will have new attack vectors coming in from different ecosystem. Let's say darknet, again completely different. You have, even within India today, you have cash market, which is completely illegal in a way, right? And that segment will be again working differently. But what I personally believe, it is more about the trace on top of it. And traceability need not be individual specific. Frankly, traceability can be based on cohort, based on understanding that, okay, this is entity relationship that you want to build, and based on that you can trace and try to identify where it is moving. Just to give an example, today when you give donation, you don't know really whether it is actually going to the end party or not. But in this scenario, you can actually trace and trace that, okay, whatever donation I gave, this was the OPEX that they charged for that, and maybe 70% was really passed to the end customer. Fantastic. So all those things you can track and trace. So those are the advantages. And one last point on the retail CBDC, whenever that happens, that even economists try to identify, is on the case of interest, whether you can build interest within that or not. I am sure RBI is not going to have interest rate on CBDC at all, given that it will then ruin the banking system. Right? So I am sure RBI is not going to do it. For smaller countries, they have done that. But for larger country like India, they are not or never going to start with interest paying CBDC. Sure.
Prasanna, many keywords. Sharath has mentioned about 13.5 lakh currency in circulation. Vikram sir is highlighting about traceability. So are we heading towards the concerns which other countries are facing about privacy?
Yeah, I think whenever we always spoken about CBDC, people always said about many challenges on privacy and traceability of the currency. I think this is what we need. Now, how do we really implement? That's another question, right? I think certainly we'll safeguard the interest of everybody. Like that's what Nandanji, I think he has said that we should. I had go with anonymous. There are multiple types. But apart from this, there are many other challenges while we implement CBDC. How do we really craft our monetary policies where we were not giving any interest on the paper money, right? And now we'll charge, don't charge. There are some examples in other countries. They also done that, and those were the unsuccessful stories, and they have to roll back and redraft those some of the CBDCs, for example, Bahamas, right? Or there are
9 countries have done it, Prasanna.
9 countries are already implemented, 14 plus are already into pilots. I think we'll have learning from those CBDs also. But India's story is different because we are larger regulation, right? Larger banking, we handle the number of customers, number of instruments which we have, number of products which we have, right? It's a larger game. Apart from data privacy, how do we handle the architecture, scalability of the whole CBDC? How do we go step by step? That's how we should really look at, yeah.
So fantastic point, Sharad, which Prasanna has made about is how do we handle this infra and architecture, since it's we are dealing with roughly around 1.3 billion odd population. So my question to you is, where does India stand? I mean, Prasanna was already highlighting that we are well capitalized, but current situation kya hai? I mean, where does India stands in the global CBDC race, and why all of a sudden everyone is talking about CBDC? And do we really require this?
Right. So I think it's not right to put it the term or use the term CBDC race, because there's no race to launch it first. You have to get it right first, right?
Yes.
So India is well placed, and as Vikram and Prasanna both pointed out, that we need a proper agile and step-by-step approach. We have the right existing infrastructure in place. But the reason why all the central banks are launching or exploring CBDCs, because they have also kind of realized the growing potential of crypto, right? And the potential of crypto to create another monetary or financial system, which at times the central banks will not be able to exercise complete control of, and it can again lead to different applications, right? So that is one part. Again, there are broader goals when it comes to India. Financial inclusion, right? That is one agenda of the government. And despite the Jam Trinity Aadhaar, there's still other areas where we are not still able to get people to use digital payments, or let's say offline payments, right? So e-rupee is one great example. Can we have a CBDC which can empower, let's say, Indian citizens in tier 2 and tier 3 cities to do offline payments? And I think RBI's decision of UPI wallet, right, can be a step in that direction. And I would like to get Vikram's views on what he thinks about that. Is UPI wallet maybe a step towards getting offline payments done? He will be able to maybe share more.
Over to you, Vikram, sir.
Sure. So in fact, look, if you look at the first cohort in RBI Sandbox, it was on the offline retail payment, right? And we have seen only out of whatever number of solutions were there, only out of them 2 were using blockchain. Everything else was on non-blockchain use case. This is the right step, in my opinion, because there are so many places in India today where you don't have any network connectivity, and you have entire model which is running on the BC. And I am very sure that that model, if you want to really grow that very quickly, you need to have offline payment option, similar to how you have e-yuan in China, for example, creating that kind of a model today. And this can be the right step, first step, without even blockchain, crypto, anything. But then in future, because even CBDC will support that, I'm telling you this for sure. Whenever a retail comes, it will be supporting that feature. So this is the right step, because always we need to start with a small step. We have done that in regulatory sandbox. In sandbox, what happens? It is the tried and tested model of doing the limited innovation in certain areas, so that you can identify the risk, you can correct those nuances that you want to handle first, and then you can go global, or you can go to all the places in India, right? And that is the reason I'm very sure that that is the right approach, to start with that and then go ahead with more and more features, because features you can add, but you don't know the implication of those features, and that it can backfire later, right? So that is something which I personally believe really will help.
So Prasanna, I think so. Vikram sir's view is what Governor Shaktikanta Das has said, that they are going cautiously on this, one step at a time. First rollout is important, and then to watch. What is your opinion on this?
Yeah, I think this is what we have done in the past, right? Even if you see how we have implemented NFS, National Financial System, or you talk about IMPS, or let's take example of a UPI, right? It took another 3 years to implement actual UPI ecosystem, starting specification, experimentation, testing across all the banks. I used to be part of those rigorous testing among all the bankers. We launched it on 11th April 2016, and actually it got mainstream after demonetization, or maybe when central government has pushed BHIM application, and then a lot of push from Paytm, and these days we keep on hearing stories of Google Pay and PhonePe. Similar story, we will see how whenever we will implement our CBDC, it will be step by step. Technology maturity or policies maturity, what type of access we have to provide to the end users, what all smaller use cases we have to move ahead. It's a very big game. I think that is what we also support RBI, and that's how we will look at the implementation has to be rigorous, tedious, but it will be well supported by better specification, better security guidelines, better compliance guidelines, better customer experience, and less of operational processes. That's one of the advantage of CBDCs. Yeah.
So Prasanna, my fourth question, I would like to begin with you. Without new standards and international coordination, the financial system may face a significant interoperability problem in the future, if you agree with this statement. And so should we wait for the standard or implementation process? What's your opinion on this?
I think very, very important and very apt question, Manoj. If we look at the journey of CBDC of US is not aligned with what China is looking for, right? Or if you look at the European Union also, all smaller countries, they never interacted with because those are the retail CBDCs game. But whenever it will come to the wholesale CBDC, wherein we involve country to country or multi-bank, interbank or inter-country transactions, I think over a period of time, we'll have to bring on a standardization out there. While we bring on standardization, it will take a lot of time. Better to keep on experimenting, doing some successful or some of those failure stories are also very important to have. So I think IMF is also looking at how these aspects of standardized infrastructure or a standardized interoperable specification has to be there. We have a SWIFT as one of the successful story, but SWIFT sits on a centralized architecture. It has its own process. While CBDC will come on, I think Visas and MasterCards are doing a lot of experiments around that, how they can bring on countries together and see some kind of a cross-border wholesale kind of a better implementation. So it will go hand in hand. Although while standardization is required, standardization will come over a period of time, while these lot of parallel experiments will go on. Yeah.
Vikram sir, what's your opinion on this?
Yes, and in fact, many people have thought about it. MITs of the world, etc. They have written paper on that. They have done even the benchmarking on different architecture, how you are able to identify that, okay, this is what I want as a tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 capability. And today, when you look at on the real-time basis, in wholesale CBDC, the idea is very simple. You need to have some sort of standardization. So they have created some pipelines. There is a project called MBridge, which is going to allow you to integrate with multiple different CBDCs. And that MBridge, for example, is going to sort that problem. That is the vision. How much it is successful, etc. We will see, time will tell. But it is the right direction, the approach that you have taken. And this is what matters. You always start small, then you look at the problem statement, you create a solution, and then you scale up the solution. So on the wholesale side, this will work. On the retail side, however, different country will have different policy, different countries will have different way of distributing this. And for retail side, you require similar to what we have in account aggregator format, right? You will require some infrastructure there, what I call in my research as a open source privacy daemon, right? Or similar to that, a policy daemon, which is going to help you with identifying policy level changes in country to country and how to integrate all these things together. So let's say in US, you have some requirement different to somebody who is in France. For example, in India today, you have data localization norm. And again, similar thing goes in Germany. So you cannot have any transaction between these two countries then, right? GDPR will not allow you, and in India, PDPP will not allow you. So all these issues are going to be legal challenges, how to take care of this and how to make sure that this works seamlessly is going to be a challenge. And you can't solve this overnight. You need to build it layer at a time. And over the period of time, this will help you scale up. And believe me, today, even the private players are working amazingly well on creating all these pipelines. Oracles, when we talk about like Chainlink or otherwise, right? These oracles are allowing you to connect with real world data. And this again can work with very well with this CBDC ecosystem, because it is tried and tested real world data. You are trying to bring them to the crypto ecosystem, and CBDC being on the crypto can really help you with that.
So Sharath, Vikram sir, what the important keyword which I have picked up is there are challenges, but seamless integration is that is important. What's your view on that?
Right, so I would like to add to a few points to what Vikram has said with respect to MCBDC. So it's called Multiple CBDC Bridge, which is happening between a Bank of Thailand, Hong Kong Monetary Authority, Saudi Arabia, and People's Bank of China's Digital Currency Institute. So that's one segment where there's a multiple, or let's say cross-geographical collaboration is happening with respect to CBDC. Now,
Fantastic.
looking back to MAS or Singapore, where the Monetary Authority of Singapore, they're running something called Project Dunbar, where MAS is there. Then again, they have Malaysia and Australia running another experiment. Since India already has, in India's NPCI is an IPL, right? International body of NPCI. They have engagements with Monetary Authority of Singapore. So India as a country should also look at joining these experiments so that Indian CBDC or digital rupee, whether it's a wholesale or retail one, can leapfrog from one geography to another. And since there are existing arrangements NPCI has with, let's say, Nepal, where UPI is already rolled out, or even Middle East, where UPI payments are running, right? So we can also see a possibility where a digital rupee can run in geographies like, say, Middle East, or areas where Indian diaspora is quite significant, because these people are already remitting money, right? So India happens to be the second biggest remittance market, right? So a digital rupee can easily run on those rails. And so we need to be a part of these broader experiments so that we can take the best learning from these experiments.
Fantastic view, a global perspective Sharath has given, Prasanna. But my next question to you is, will CBDC make India one of the powerful economy? And if yes, which countries have benefited using CBDCs? If you can just give some examples, as Sharath has already highlighted, there is a big global perspective to it.
Yeah, I think, see, if we don't do CBDC, we'll have a traditional way of doing banking. And there are a lot of challenges around that, right? So if you look at overall banking, which we have seen last several years, it sits on a lot of reconciliation, settlement, handling cash, handling so much of operation which happens in the backend. Say, for example, today for a user, UPI is a wow experience, right? But he may not have that knowledge that in the backend, banks are sitting on so much of operational processes. With CBDC, slowly, gradually, we can see that we can do away with all those operational processes. So much of a cost it is incurred, and overall, it will be a boost for a GDP. Now, we have to identify what are different use cases, either in retail and wholesale, we will look at, where we can get all these finance relevant optimization and more profit for the India like a country. So eventually it will add some power to the economy. Why? Because at the same time, other countries also looking at a CBDC. China's or US and everybody looking at, right? And at the same time, in India, there is a huge adoption which is happening around crypto or that kind of ecosystem. We have to, if you have to create an equilibrium around your current economy, we need to create something which is a legal tender, which is governed by government. That's how it will help. Yeah.
Sure. Sharath, what's your view on this? Because Prasanna has already mentioned that we are working towards creating something, and it requires a lot of caution and a lot of steps that has to be taken in mind before rolling it out. So, what's your opinion? The race towards power, and we are talking about trade and other setups which India is going to take up going forward as well. What's your opinion on that?
Right. So I would like to give a broader perspective with respect to the G20, where India happens to be one of the founding members of the G20. And now G20 is also linked to the Financial Stability Board. Now the Financial Stability Board has a mandate to work on cross-border payments. So all members of G20, including India, USA, UK, Hong Kong, right? So you pick all major countries or economies, they're part of G20 group. Since CBDC has a broader role to play when it comes to cross-border payments, you can reduce transaction costs to a significant degree, right? So cross-border payments can be made efficient, real-time, and transparent. So cross-border trade, which India does with different countries, including China for that matter, right? So those costs can be minimized, and it can help Indian businesses who are involved in, let's say, import or trade of services, right? So that's one area I could see where CBDC can really help position India to a great level.
Vikram sir, what's your opinion? The most important keyword which Sharath has mentioned, that it will help the trade. Is there any other point which you want to highlight?
Commerce of future, right? How that future commerce may look like. So
Sure.
you already have good use cases around UBI, Universal Basic Income, which you can really do well with CBDC because that end use control, whatever you have, is much better in that. Similarly, today you have DeFi ecosystem, but with CBDC, if you build something, it will be hybrid ecosystem, and hybrid finance, as we call it, right, will be really good way to start. And what will happen within that? So you have liquidity pool today as a concept in DeFi ecosystem. Similar to that, you will have liquidity pool of different currencies, which are CBDC1, CBDC2, for example, right? And that will create much more liquid market. It will allow you to have better price discovery, and you will have much more transparent mechanism without any third party influencing much, right? Those things are there. Third thing is around how you can build businesses of the future, right? Trade finance, when we talk about, I'm telling you, future will be, let's say, NFTs will be created, and based on that, you are having trade financing of NFT pool. And again, NFT does not matter whether it is crypto or non-crypto, it is a blockchain technology we are talking about. So ultimately, you are talking about NFT, which is representing uniquely one invoice and a pool of invoice. It can be, again, NFT may represent LC that a bank is writing, and again, you can pool those LCs and discount that, right? And this will allow a new set of business models, which is tradable, transparent, transferable. You can assign also, you can further subdivide it. So retail participation can be there. So you are opening up so many different business models suddenly because of the way you can work with central bank digital currency along with the crypto world, right? And this two together can create really a hybrid finance game that we talked about.
So Prasanna, as we are, the initiative which Crypto TV has taken is to educate their viewers about central bank digital currency. It's a big topic, which we are discussing, and a broader perspective, global perspective we are getting. So what should be the approach as per, expectations by the government of India? In short, what is your suggestion to the government, if there is any?
Yeah, I think I'll not be that great person to suggest a government of India. Primarily, what I can see as one of the stakeholders in the whole ecosystem as a bank, I think RBI is I think India is blessed with a very good regulator. And what we have seen in last 10 years, we have seen a lot of path-breaking innovations which we have gotten and which is helping the overall Indian ecosystem, overall citizens of India, right? Since the rise of NPCI, we have seen a lot of consolidation and standardization of payment products. That's how a country should really evolve. We are blessed with a very good like Aadhaar, like digital identity ecosystem. Payment is a quite well solved at an Indian ecosystem. You talk about adoption of internet or creation of internet across all Indian areas, right? Through BharatNet, which is happening. A lot of tech companies are coming in India and creating that whole digital adaptation. I think we are now riding on this whole wave while we end up into some other Web3 era, people talk, right, on blockchain, Metaverse, or 5G and whatnot. But when you talk about a CBDC, our CBDC will be very, very powerful, as what I'll go with what Sharad and Vikram spoken about. We have those railroads. Now we need to look at how those railroads can be taken care and go to the next level, right? We have that collaboration with Nepal and India, say example, or UPI being utilized for a corridor between Singapore and India, right? And it has a potential to create many more such corridors. So what is it you have to bring in the backend? How we can really have a better architecture, either with a blockchain and non-blockchain, because CBDC can be implemented with or without blockchain. But why transparency, traceability is required, we'll always go ahead with a blockchain. Then again, which blockchain, right? So we are sitting a lot of experts which will decide which protocol we'll utilize. And I think if you ask or if you challenge India, we can come up with our own protocols, our own architecture, which will bind account aggregator, UPI, Aadhaar under one ecosystem. I am looking at NPCI, who can really drive this kind of initiative, because they have done it earlier with a UPI, or you talk about top 10 innovations in payments, it's all done by NPCI. That's how I look at how it can be implemented at India level. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic view. Sharath, my next, there is a follow-up question on this to you is, in the budget speech, Honorable Finance Minister had mentioned about rollout of CBDC in 22-23 with the help of blockchain technology. 9 days later, T. Ravi Shankar, our Deputy Governor, had clarified in a press conference that technologies can be, apart from blockchain, there can be other technologies as well. Is there any suggestion you want to make on this front?
My only submission to the regulators and government is that please make the paper public, what they're thinking, what is the design of the CBDC, right, the architecture,
right.
so that bodies like say NPCI and even bodies like even let's say India Blockchain Forum where Prasanna is driving it, right? So all stakeholders can offer these suggestions, and it has to be a collaborative approach. Both private-public partnership is needed so that every stakeholder is taken on board, right? So more clarity on the architecture, the design choices will actually help other players also offer innovative solutions so that it becomes an inclusive approach.
Vikram, so a quick take on that. Is there any suggestion you want to make to the government on this?
Just adding to what Prasanna and Sarath mentioned, right? So when you look at in India, you have now multiple stakes which are ready. You have Aadhaar stake, you have Health ID stake, which is ABHA, you have even the telecom stake, and all these stakes are ready. Try to make sure that, as Sarath mentioned, make it public what you are planning, how you are going to implement this across all these different blocks that you already have created. And I'm very sure, by the way, we have seen that journey from NPCI perspective. They had created Vajra using blockchain. They know whether to use the blockchain or not, where it will help, where it will not help. I personally believe technology is just a tool to solve a problem. Either you use blockchain or use something else, doesn't matter, as long as you are able to solve that problem efficiently. Now, whether you use Amazon's QLDB, for example, to make it immutable, I don't care, as long as the purpose is solved. And when we talk about ecosystem, wider ecosystem, where do you want to stand? Are you having that benchmarking vis-a-vis different countries that already are working on this? I'm sure they have done that. And when they make this public, then we will come to know about what is going in their mind, and we can suggest much clearly that what you should do. And I'm telling you this, there are 3 steps in any technology implementation. One is you do benchmarking, you create a paper, you distribute it, take the input as a second step, identify the gaps that you have, and then you enhance whatever you can do with that. And finally, when you create it, start with a small area,
sure,
then try to grow it across whatever different channels you want to grow.
So Vikram sir, my next question to you is, we're talking about central bank digital currency. This is to educate our viewers. If you can just simplify very quickly, is CBDC a stable coin? If you can just, explain this for our viewers.
Correct. So yes, it is true in a way. And I will tell you a simple thing, right? Normally what happens, stable coin, you have one-to-one correspondence between, let's say, there are multiple different stable coin mechanism, by the way, but in a simple stuff, you have, let's say, $1 and you have one USDT, for example, which is going to represent that. In India, again, this is something now government is making. So now you may or may not have directly one-to-one correspondent as a reserve, but you have government which is promising, similar to what your fiat money does, right? You have that promise to pay by government. It is similar thing. You don't have actual reserve, but it is promised to pay. It is centralized, so you don't need to worry about having all those protocols to have decentralization. So as simple as that, you have one-to-one correspondent. You have one digital crypto rupee or CBDC is equal to 1 rupee or part of it, paisa, or it can be even less than that, right? And the advantage that you will have is overall, you can identify where this rupee is moving and how it is moving, whether you give it direct benefit transfer, whether you give it through whatever other medium you want, but that traceability and governance structure you can add, which is very critical.
So Sharath, your quick view on this, if you can just explain this to our viewers.
So CBDC is issued by sovereign, like say our government in that case, but coins can be issued by a private entity as well. If you look at US, right? So Circle is issuing USDC, one of the largest stable coins in the market. So what is happening in the US is the Federal Reserve is kind of harping on the fact that banks should be the stable coin issuers, or federally recognized institutions can act as entities who can issue stable coins. So what can happen possibly, and again, maybe Vikram and Prasanna can chime in and say that, can we have payment banks in India issuing stable coins? Very likely if RBI thinks so.
Sure, Prasanna, your quick view, before we take the last question.
So while I think he's trying to answer, I will just add to what he said, right? So
right.
Unfortunately, what has happened, even if you look at from the definition perspective, it is not yet clear as of now, after the definition in budget, whether the reward point that you have, right? If you even use reward point, which has some one-to-one correspondent, whether it is 0.25 paisa or whatever, whether that will be considered under crypto or not. Not many people are clear on that. So I think that clarity should be first. Today, crypto definition covers anything and everything, which in my opinion is not great. You should be very clear, and I'm hoping that very soon you will have exclusions within that. but it should be underlying, which should drive the compliance and not the nomenclature that should drive the compliance. Underlying the form that you have vis-a-vis the substance that you are driving. So I think that is very critical.
So Prasanna, a quick take on that.
Yeah, I think stable coins is are very accelerating pointers for a CBDC. This is what we are seeing. Like, for example, Libra, which has converted to Dime, and Sir has spoken about some of the stable coins. I think CBDC is governed by governments, right? Central bank digital currencies, and primarily it is a centralized versions of the stable coins. That's what I can say on the and stable coins primarily decentralized, not directly in most of the countries are not governed by government. They have a lot of power to really give a challenge to the CBDCs. Eventually, what US says, they want to convert all those stable coins as a CBDCs. I think that's the main difference between CBDCs and stable coins. Primarily, when we look at cryptocurrencies, most of them have a volatility, right? Primarily, stable coins don't have that much kind of a volatility because it has some use case, some kind of a utility around that. Yeah.
So Sharath, my last question to you, as this is the initiative which we have taken and a robust panel which we have for our viewers as well. Is CBDC a threat to cryptocurrencies, and can crypto coexist with CBDC?
So to answer your first question, first, it's not a threat to to the crypto ecosystem because they have different use cases, right? But we also need to kind of acknowledge the fact that there has to be coexistence of all types of cryptocurrencies in the digital asset ecosystem. They are meant for different use cases, different utilities, right? So no threat, but in fact, it will also spur the adoption of digital assets because you have rules for intermediaries, governance, right, and privacy, right? So I think it will help the entire ecosystem to grow if you have the right rules or right frameworks with respect to enforcing compliance, right? So I don't see any threat. In fact, it will aid in the adoption of digital assets.
Vikram sir, not a threat. Is there any view you want to pass on? Is CBDC a threat to crypto, and will this coexist with the CBDC universe, which is we are heading on towards the digital rupee?
Correct. So as I had earlier mentioned, hybrid finance is the term that I used, and that is going to be the future any which ways. So they will coexist. In certain part of the world, right, you will have some governments banning, maybe once you have CBDC, they may ban it. But I personally believe banning is not the right way. You need to look at how can you tax it, how can you recognize it, how can you reduce the risk, right? So maybe that can be a right approach. But even if you ban it, you need to understand somehow, somewhere, it is a global thing and it is decentralized. So you can't control it even if you want to. So while you can ban, you can't control. So the right approach is very simple. You have cost of regulation or cost of compliance in a way, and then you have benefit in terms of economic growth and innovation. You need to always weigh this together and identify which one that you want to look at first. In my opinion, today at least, you have crypto world, cost of compliance is much higher, which is there, and innovation is very, very high. The benefit of innovation, right? So it doesn't make sense to ban anything just because you can't control, you can't ban it.
What a fantastic view, Prasanna, what Vikram sir has mentioned. Yeah. There is a cost of innovation that is involved and the benefits are huge. What's your opinion? What's your closing remark on this?
Yeah, I think great views through this session. I think personally I have learned so many things. But coming back to your question, crypto or CBDC or both or equilibrium, I think CBDC came in because of the power or innovations which we have seen through the cryptocurrencies. Okay, look at those 2007 when the profitable bank, right, one of those profitable bank, Lehman Brothers, gone down, and immediately we have seen how we can bring a better equilibrium through kind of like a God's protocol we talk about, right, Bitcoin. And since then we have seen 17,000 or almost more than that we see rise of cryptocurrencies. And the way if you look at many more countries in the world, adoption is huge, right? There are some countries like El Salvador, they have already said it is a legal tender, like Bitcoin is a legal tender. Now, when you say CBDC is coming, what they will do with that, whatever work they have done. So many countries has gone ahead. Many countries are still looking at banning or regulating. Say example, in India, now we are treating it as a virtual digital asset, right? So I think both will be there. We need that. What we have seen in the past, how come USD has become powerful cryptocurrency a powerful currency after World War? Nobody has taken chance, right? Now China is giving that kind of a challenge to the US. while we also, as in India, we also have an opportunity to become one of those powerful economy. Whoever will take care of all these cryptocurrencies, CBDCs, and upcoming many more other instruments, financial instruments, they will have a farther larger age. So I think considering many use cases which are already there in form of cryptos or security tokens, there are many more other angles to look at the types of use cases. And what CBDC is coming in, I think we need a kind of a equilibrium. So both will coexist, because both the things has a better innovations for normal citizens. Now it is up to every country how they want to regulate it. So regulation doesn't mean banning. Regulation means like how do we really safeguard and use the potential of that technology and use it for everybody. So I think this is a high time for a country like India to bring a better regulation which will use this technology, blockchain or digital virtual assets or a CBDC. That's how we need to look at it, Manoj. Yeah.
So that's it. That's a word coming in from our guest. This is the last, and third final segment from Crypto TV. Thank you so much, Sharath, for being a part of this panel discussion. You spoke really well about the global perspective. What were the examples the other countries have adopted and benefited from the CBDC? Vikram sir, thank you so much for explaining to our viewers in detail about CBDC and stablecoin example which you gave, and the cost of regulation and the other perspective. It was fantastic, sir. Prasanna, as usual, thank you so much, Chief. You were fantastic on this. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for being a part on this panel discussion. This is me, Manoj Dharra, signing off from Crypto TV. Thank you so much.